Good afternoon, everyone. I am Angel from Lima in Peru, and this is my channel Reading Means Life. Today, I want to tell you about this book that I got in December, courtesy of a friend. Where we Cholos come from. Cholo is one of the most difficult words to define, as I have previously said in other videos. Cholo is the origin. Cholo is an indigenous person or maybe a mestizo one who has indigenous and Spanish origin. What the author, Marco Avilés, a Peruvian one, uh, who calls himself a Cholo, wants to achieve in this book is not to tell us about the many great things that Cholos have achieved in Lima, in the capital city, which is the capital with the most Cholos in Peru. I'm sorry. But to go to the very origin, to go back to where we Cholos come from, which is the Sierra. Sierra is the highlands. In Peru, we can call it the Andean region, and also the selva, which is the jungle. In Peru we call it the Amazon. I I would have wanted the author to include some rural areas on the Peruvian coast because many people say that Cholo comes from Chala, which is the name of the coast. Well, to be honest, I don't know exactly if that is true, but having said that, I still believe that this is a really complete book. In 9 chapters, he starts with Abancay. He had to start with Abancay, of course, because this city is located in the southern Andes, and he was born there. So the book starts not exactly with a family history, but yes, he tells us about his grandparents on his father's side, who are Cholos Blancos. Cholo Blanco is someone, a mestizo person, who, of course, has some indigenous origin, but looks whiter than the typical Cholo or the typical indigenous person. And something sad that unfortunately is reflected in many families is that the relatives who look white are the beautiful ones. Whereas the indigenous ones, the ones that have some indigenous features, have no beauty, you know, are ugly. But of course, it is not mentioned in such an explicit way like this. Well, the second chapter is called Chumbivilcas. Chumbivilcas is a province near Cusco, again in the southern Andes, and it shows us the mechanics of a tradition which for some people might be, made by savage people. It is called takanakui. Takanakui is, to solve the problems that you have with another person by fighting. Of course, virtually the whole town have to drink liters and liters of alcohol, which is for me something that, yeah, might seem uncivilized. However, I should reflect, is it part of the culture? Is that a cultural aspect of that collectivity that is to be respected, is to be preserved, or is to be changed? Well, the debate is open, of course. The next chapter is called Churubamba, which is again an Andean community. And something that is very interesting is that women and not men are very good at football. You know that football or soccer, as they call it in America, is mainly practiced amongst men in Latin America, not exactly amongst women. And women are much better than men over there. So men might feel kind of minimized. They have to help with the children while women compete and they win, unlike their male counterparts. Well, it's very graphic to see how rural areas is associated with more indigenous speaking Quechua, wearing yanquis or ojota. Ojota is a type of traditional sandal that Peruvian women in the Andes wear, while another group of women, more mestizo ones, have trainers to wear to protect their feet and have more equipment that might make us superior in terms of playing football. Well, the next chapter is called Camisea River. The Camisea River is located in the Amazonian area of Cusco, because you know that Cusco is not only Andes but also Amazon, and it tells us about the Amazonian ethnic groups that escaped from, the invaders, the people who colonized that, because traditionally, as the book states very well, many Amazonian Indians have been enslaved, and even by the government, that the Amazon has been conceived as a virgin place with virtually no humans and a lot of mineral resources that are waiting to be exploited, and it of course affects the Indians' lifestyle, and not only their lifestyles but their very lives. Well, coming back to the Andes, the next chapter is called Carancas. Carancas is a remote area near the border, near the Bolivian border, in the Peruvian Altiplano in Puno. It was about a meteorite that fell some years ago, and it attracted many astronomers, many university students, and especially the TV channels, the mass media. And of course, electoral promises arose that they will build a museum, that many tourists will come, and they will help the community by paying in cash, especially in dollars. And of course, those promises were empty. That was kind of pessimistic, of course, because that exactly that is repeated in Peru every 4 years, for the electoral elections to be mayors, and every 5 years for the president. They promise and promise, and people believe, and in the end, nothing happens. They are swindled. On the other hand, the next chapter is called El Dorado, and it fills me with optimism because you know that our Amazon, our natural resources have been exploited in such an aggressive way, with just looking in the short term without caring for the preservation of the species. It happened with the vicuña, it happened with the paiche. Paiche is a very, very big Amazonian fish, uh, definitely the biggest one in the continent, and it lives in cochas. Cochas are small lakes in the Amazon, and the Yakutaitas are the protectors of those lakes. They work at a national reserve, a natural reserve called Pacaya Samiria in the department of Loreto, and they want to protect that species exploited, of course, because this is not a national park, that's a national reserve. You know that the resources might be exploited, but of course in a responsible way. However, there are hunters, there are fishermen who do not respect that, and as I told you, they just see money, they just see cash in the short term. Well, that chapter is about the many the very difficult labor that they have in order to preserve that species. So that is probably the happiest chapter. And the next one is called Iquitos. Iquitos is the capital of the region of Loreto, in which Pacaya Samiria National Reserve is located. This is an experience, a kind of interview. Well, not exactly an interview, but the interaction that the author had with Pedro Miguel Schiaffino, a very famous and a very prestigious Peruvian chef, and how he, being from Lima, being from a kind of rich family, has shown us the many products that the Amazon offers, and that we people in Lima tend to forget, tend to ignore, and those products might be transformed into so delicious dishes, into gourmet Peruvian food. So that's kind of short. It's the initiative by one Peruvian chef, and well, that's another optimist chapter, because you know that when a Peruvian thinks about Amazonian food, I just think about Juane, Tacacho, Juane, Tacacho, Juane, Tacacho, which are the two most traditional Amazonian dishes. And then what else? Of course, there are many, but Mr. Schiaffino has demonstrated, has shown us that the future of Peruvian food is or lies in the Amazonia. The next chapter also deals with food, because it is called Guayana. I don't know exactly where Guayana is located, but it's of course in the Andes, and it tells us about the efforts that the peasants there had in order to sell their products, their native potatoes. Well, we call them papas nativas. You know that Peru has thousands, I think that more than 3,000 species of potatoes, and those are cultivated in such a traditional way without anything artificial, which means that those potatoes are really, really nutritious, and they are so small that in many supermarkets they might confuse them as papitas cocktail. You know, that unfortunately and traditionally, those people have been victims of the intermediarios. Intermediarios are the people who buy the products to those humble producers for just an offensive amount of money, which is so low in an abusive way, of course, and they resell it to markets and supermarkets in Lima for a much higher price. So who wins? Everybody except for the producers. So there is an NGO that helps those people in order to attend the most important food fair in Latin America, which is called Mistura and is located in Lima, and they manage to sell their products. So if the previous chapter is in the Amazonia, this chapter is in the Andes, and it tells us that sometimes we Peruvians eat the same. We die if we don't have rice, if we don't have bread or milk, and we ignore the many products that are produced in our soil. So that is the message, I think, to appreciate more that. And of course, the last chapter ends in Lima. This is the name of the chapter, the capital city, in which you can find people from every part of Peru, from the coast, the Andes, and the Amazon. And one of the factors that might unite us as a society, as a city, is food. He says that unlike other cities in which locals might ask visitors, have you visited that place? Have you visited that museum? Have you visited that monument? In Lima, we ask, have you eaten this? Have you eaten that? So food might be a source of pride and might be a very important stone when building our society, when building our national identity. So I really, really recommend reading this book, Where We Cholos Come From, because in a very, very fresh way, it tells us about the origins that we as Peruvians have. As in my case, I told you that my family on my father's side come from the Amazon, especially Cajamarca, specifically Cajamarca, and I have never visited that place. My maternal family come from Ayacucho, which is located in the southern Andes. Many of them speak Quechua, and the first and only time that I visited Ayacucho was about 1.5 years ago. I don't speak Quechua at all. So this book invites me and invites us to come back to our origins and to love our ancestors, our nationhood, in order to build a stronger one. Well, that's all for now, and I cordially invite you to read Where We Cholos Come From. Bye bye.